has announced plans to halt sales of gas and diesel-powered cars as the country works to cap carbon emissions by the year 2030. The government said it's still working on a timeline to implement the ban. The decision echoes recent announcements by countries including France and the UK to get more fossil-fueled vehicles off the road. These are big moves aimed at counteracting climate change. But can individual people taking individual actions make just as big a dent?
Just makes me French, like it's a highway, is your girlfriend, and it goes by quick. It goes, Eddie driver, Eddie drive. I'm stuck all alone and I wanna turn over.
If we act fast enough, humans have the power to slow down and even stop the progress of climate change. There's broad consensus on that point. But where exactly does that power lie? Let's start with the individual. If you paid attention in grade school, you were told to recycle and compost. But a recent study calls bullshit on that. According to researchers at Lund University in Sweden, the actions that really lower a person's carbon footprint are things like giving up eating juicy steaks forever, giving up your car, even if it's a Tesla, and having fewer babies. Because according to the study, having one fewer child can prevent the release of about 60 metric tons of CO2 into our atmosphere each year, or around what 13 cars release on a yearly basis. But there's a hiccup. The study's findings may only be meaningful if everyone makes these changes. Here's what Sam Miller-McDonald, the founder of Activist Lab, had to say about this.
They call these individual actions, but they're really not. These are collective actions. They only work, they only put a dent in carbon emissions if millions of people do them. And so then I think it brings up this question of, are millions of people realistically going to take these actions? And the answer is probably not.
And there's another larger problem. When scientists compare the potential actions that humans can take, one thing becomes clear. In the fight against climate change, it really doesn't matter if you're a vegan bike rider who took a vow of celibacy. Because no matter what you do as an individual, governments are probably the only entities that really have the ability to reverse the course of climate change. The reason for that is corporations. 71% of all worldwide industrial greenhouse gas emissions released since 1988 were produced by just 100 companies. That amounts to 635 metric gigatons of CO2 released by companies like ExxonMobil, Shell, PetroChina, and Coal India. Because of this, voting for representatives who will impose regulations and who will make clean energy a priority and then holding them to their promises might be the most meaningful action a person can take. Of course, there's no harm in composting or reaching for that pack of condoms.